Maya Johnson had been warned. People told her small towns in Texas weren't always welcoming to outsiders, especially black women alone. But she didn't scare easy. She had spent over a decade training soldiers to fight, teaching them to take hits and give them back twice as hard. War had hardened her, but life had sharpened her into something even deadlier, a woman with nothing to lose and no patience for cowards. She pulled her Dodge Ram into the gravel driveway of her new home, a modest ranch-style house at the edge of town. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the quiet street. She hadn't even finished unloading her truck when she saw them. For teenage boys on bicycles, lingering across the street, whispering and pointing. She had seen their type before. Bullies, the kind who thought fear was their birthright, and that power belonged to those who took it. Maya ignored them at first, hauling a heavy box of weights into her house. But as she turned, she caught the unmistakable sound of a bottle shattering against her driveway. She dropped the box. Slowly, deliberately, she turned to face them. One of them, a lanky kid with a buzz cut and a smirk too big for his face, spoke first. "Ain't seen you around here before. You lost." Maya smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "No, but you might be." The boys laughed, but there was hesitation in it. Something in her eyes made them uneasy. Good. Let them be nervous. They had no idea what kind of storm had just rolled into their town. The laughter didn't last long. The boys expected Maya to react like their past victims, flustered, intimidated, or maybe even angry but powerless. Instead, she just stood there, arms crossed, head slightly tilted, studying them like a hunter sizing a prey. That silence made them uneasy. The tallest one, a broad-shouldered kid with a square jaw, stepped forward, trying to regain control of the moment. "You must not know how things work around here," he said, voice dripping with arrogance. "People like you don't last too long in towns like this." Maya exhaled sharply, shaking her head. She had seen their kind before, young men who thought they were wolves but had never actually met one. She took a slow step forward, her boots crunching against the gravel. The boys flinched. "People like me?" she echoed. "You mean people who don't run from little boys playing tough?" Buzzcut clenched his jaw. His grip tightened around a half-empty beer bottle he had been holding. Maya saw the flicker of indecision in his eyes. He wanted to impress his friends. He wanted to show he wasn't afraid. That's when she knew exactly what he was going to do next. Sure enough, he reared back and hurled the bottle at her. But Maya wasn't there when it shattered against the ground. She had moved, lightning fast, sidestepping the throw and closing the distance between them before any of them could process what happened. Before Buzzcut could react, Maya grabbed his wrist and twisted. Hard. He let out a yelp as he dropped to his knees, his friend stumbling back in shock. "You boys need to learn some manners," Maya whispered, her grip tightening just enough to make him sweat. "Lucky for you, I know how to teach." She let him go, and he fell backward, gasping. The others hesitated, eyes darting between their leader and the woman who had just humbled him in less than 5 seconds. Maya dusted off her hands and picked up her box again, stepping over the broken glass like it was nothing. "Now, if you're done embarrassing yourselves, get off my property." No one argued. They just ran. But Maya knew this wasn't over. No, this was just the beginning. Let us know what you think in the comments. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below. Kindly like, share, and subscribe. The boys disappeared into the night, but Maya knew fear wouldn't keep them away for long. Bullies never backed down after the first hit. They got angrier, dumber, and more desperate. She had seen it in the military, training recruits who thought toughness came from barking orders. The ones who couldn't handle real discipline always looked for someone smaller to take their frustration out on. She went inside, locking the door behind her. The house smelled like fresh paint and sawdust, still in the process of becoming a home. Maya had picked this town because it was quiet, because it promised a fresh start. She wasn't naive enough to believe in fairy tales, but she had hope for peace. Maybe that had been a mistake. As she moved through the house, unpacking what she could, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was a text from her realtor, Mrs. Perkins. "Everything okay, dear? I heard some noise outside your place." Maya smirked, Small-town gossip spread faster than wildfire. She texted back, "Nothing I can handle." Mrs. Perkins responded almost immediately, "Be careful. Those boys, their parents run this town. They don't take kindly to outsiders pushing back." Maya sighed. Of course, they did. That explained everything. The arrogance, the recklessness. These weren't just any teenagers. They were privileged little tyrants who had never faced real consequences. She set the phone down and stretched, feeling the familiar tightness in her shoulders. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Those boys would be back. But they wouldn't come alone. They would lick their wounds, tell their daddy some lie about how the aggressive black woman attacked them, and before long, the real threats would show up. Maya walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Across the street, porch lights flickered on. Shadows moved behind curtains. People were watching, judging, deciding which side they would take. She had only been in town for one day, and already the battle lines were being drawn. Let them come, she thought. She had never lost a fight in her life, and she wasn't about to start now. The morning air was thick with humidity as Maya stepped onto her porch, a steaming cup of coffee in her hand. The town looked different in daylight, quieter, calmer, but she knew better. Beneath the surface, something ugly festered. Small towns like this didn't forget or forgive easily, especially when an outsider refused to know their place. She had barely taken a sip of her coffee when she noticed a black Ford F-150 rolling slowly down the street. It didn't take a genius to figure out it wasn't a coincidence. The truck crawled to a stop in front of her driveway. Two men sat inside, both white, both staring at her like she was an animal they weren't sure they wanted to put down yet. The driver, a burly man with graying hair and a thick mustache, stepped out first. He wore a sheriff's badge on his belt. His partner, younger but with the same hard look in his eyes, followed close behind. Maya didn't move, didn't blink, just sipped her coffee and waited. "You Maya Johnson?" the sheriff asked, his voice thick with condescension. She took her time answering. "That depends. Who's asking?" The younger deputy bristled, but the sheriff chuckled. "Name's Sheriff Colton Briggs. Been serving this town for over 20 years. He nodded toward his partner. "This here's Deputy Hensley." Maya glanced at the truck, then back at them. "Let me guess. You're not here to welcome me with a pie." Briggs smirked. "No, ma'am. More like a friendly warning." He adjusted his belt, eyes scanning her up and down. "Seems there was an incident last night. Some local boys say you got a little aggressive." Maya let out a short laugh. "Aggressive? You mean when they threw a bottle at me on my own property? That kind of aggressive." Briggs shrugged. "That's not how they tell it." "Of course it isn't." Hensley stepped forward, puffing up his chest. "We don't like troublemakers here, Miss Johnson. This is a peaceful town." Maya's jaw tightened. "Peaceful for who?" Briggs sighed, feigning patience. "Look, I get it. You're new. Maybe you don't understand how things work around here. But let me give you some advice. Keep your head down. Stay out of trouble. And maybe, just maybe, you'll fit in." Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she took another sip of her coffee. "See, Sheriff, that's the problem. I don't fit in. Never have. Never needed to." Briggs' smile faltered. For the first time, he looked unsure. That made Maya smile. The sheriff exhaled through his nose, then tipped his hat. "Have a nice day, Miss Johnson." He turned, muttering something to Hensley as they climbed back into the truck. Maya watched them drive off, the message loud and clear. This wasn't a warning. It was a threat, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. By nightfall, Maya knew they'd make another move. Bullies always did. They never took their losses quietly, especially when their egos were on the line. Sheriff Briggs had delivered his warning, but it wasn't just words. It was permission, a signal to the boys and their fathers that she was fair game. She wasn't worried. Maya spent the evening reinforcing her locks, checking security cameras she had installed that afternoon, and making sure her knives were exactly where they needed to be. She had been in enough war zones to know that trouble never knocked. It kicked the door in. At exactly 1:47 a.m., the first rock hit her window. The sharp crack echoed through the house, but Maya didn't move. The second one followed a few seconds later, then a third. They were testing her, waiting to see if she'd react. She smiled. Maya slipped on a hoodie, her combat boots, and stepped out the back door, moving through the shadows like a ghost. The moonlight cast long, jagged silhouettes as she crept around the side of the house. The moment she turned the corner, she saw them. 4 of them this time. Buzz Cut was there, still nursing his bruised ego from their last encounter. Beside him stood a lanky kid with a cigarette dangling from his lips, a stocky one gripping a tire iron, and another whose face she couldn't see under his hoodie. They were whispering, laughing under their breath. Maya crouched low, gripping a fist-sized rock from the ground. Then, with the precision of someone who had spent years in combat training, she launched it. The rock smacked against Buzz Cut's shoulder with a loud thud. He cursed, stumbling back. "The hell was that?" The stocky one barked, spinning around. Maya stepped into the dim porch light, arms crossed. "You boys lost." Buzz Cut's eyes widened before narrowing. He clenched his fists. "You think you're funny?" "No," Maya said, stepping closer. "I think I'm patient. But that patience is wearing thin." The stocky one swung first, raising the tire iron with a grunt. Maya moved fast, too fast for them to process. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist mid-swing, and twisted. A sickening pop echoed as he howled in pain, the iron clattering to the ground. Before the lanky kid could react, Maya delivered a swift kick to his knee, sending him crumpling. Buzz Cut hesitated, but the hooded one, the biggest of the group, charged. Maya ducked under his wild punch, grabbed the back of his hoodie, and used his own momentum against him, slamming him face first into the dirt. In less than 10 seconds, it was over. Buzz Cut stood frozen, fists clenched, but he didn't move. Maya took a slow step toward him. "Pick up your friends. And if you ever come back here again, I won't be so nice." He swallowed hard, then nodded. One by one, they scrambled to their feet, dragging the groaning, stocky one with them as they limped away. Maya watched them disappear down the road before she exhaled, rolling her shoulders. They'd be back. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but they weren't done. Neither was she. Maya stood on her porch long after the boys disappeared, her muscles still tense, adrenaline humming beneath her skin. The night air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, and for the first time in years, she felt that familiar edge, the one that came before real war. She turned to go back inside when something shifted in the shadows. A presence. Someone was watching. Maya didn't flinch, didn't rush. Instead, she tilted her head, scanning the tree line across the street. At first, there was nothing but darkness. Then, barely visible between the thick branches, she caught the glint of eyes. Whoever it was, they weren't one of the kids. This was someone older, someone calm. Maya took a step forward. "You want to come out, or you prefer to skulk in the dark?" Silence. A long, deliberate one. Then, finally, the figure stepped into the moonlight. A man, tall, lean but strong, with dark brown skin and an expression carved from stone. His hair was cropped short, his face shadowed by the hood of his sweatshirt. He wasn't holding a weapon, but something about the way he stood, so perfectly balanced, told her he didn't need one. Maya narrowed her eyes. "You one of them?" The man's lips twitched, almost like he wanted to smirk, but didn't bother. "If I was, they wouldn't be walking away right now." His voice was deep, steady. That made Maya pause. "Then who are you?" He studied her, unreadable. "Someone who doesn't like bullies." Maya folded her arms. "That supposed to mean something to me?" The man exhaled through his nose, almost amused. "It will." He turned slightly, glancing down the road where the boys had disappeared. "You just made enemies in the wrong town. They won't stop. And the sheriff? He's not just going to sit back and let you embarrass his people." Maya already knew that, but hearing it from a stranger made it feel heavier. "I can handle myself." The man finally met her eyes. "I don't doubt that. But even the best fighters don't fight alone forever." Maya studied him for a moment. "You offering something?" He didn't answer right away. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and held it out. When you're ready. Maya hesitated, then took it before she could ask anything else. The man turned, disappearing into the trees like a ghost. She unfolded the paper. A name, a number, and one word beneath it. Justice. Maya stared at it for a long time, her heartbeat steady but her mind racing. Who the hell was he? And more importantly, what had she just been invited into? Maya sat on her porch, turning the paper over in her hands. Justice. The word felt heavier than it should. It wasn't just about teaching a lesson anymore. She had already done that. But if this stranger was right, if the sheriff and his people weren't going to let her walk away unchallenged, then she needed to be smart. She made the call, a single ring, then another. On the third, a voice answered, "You're ready." It wasn't a question. Maya exhaled, not sure what I'm ready for. But I don't like being hunted. A pause. Then, good. Meet me tomorrow. Old truck stop on 59. Noon. The line went dead. Maya didn't sleep much that night. Her military instincts wouldn't let her. When the sun rose, she was already dressed, her Glock holstered beneath her jacket. If this was a trap, she'd be ready. The truck stop was nearly empty when she arrived. A few truckers leaned against their rigs, smoking and laughing. The man from last night was waiting near a rusted-out gas pump, arms crossed. Up close, he looked even more dangerous. His posture screamed discipline, experience. Maya. She stopped a few feet away. You got a name? Damien. She nodded. You military? Something like that. That told her everything and nothing. Damien motioned toward the diner. Let's talk. Inside, they took a booth near the back. Damien ordered coffee. Maya didn't order anything. Sheriff Briggs has been in power for 10 years, Damien said, stirring his cup. Runs this town like his own little kingdom. The people who challenge him, they either disappear or learn to shut up. Those boys you put down, their daddies are some of his biggest enforcers. Maya leaned forward. You got a personal reason for telling me this? Damien met her gaze. Let's just say I don't like cowards who hide behind power. And I don't like people getting stomped on just because they're different. He took a slow sip. I've been fighting this fight alone for a long time. But now, I think we might be able to do some real damage together. Maya tilted her head. What kind of damage? Damien smirked. The kind that makes sure people like Briggs never get comfortable again. Maya thought about it. She had spent years fighting wars overseas, defending people she didn't even know. Now, she was back home, and the battlefield was here. The mission was different, but the enemy was the same. Abusers of power, men who thought they could take and take without consequence. She slid the paper back across the table. I'm in. Damien nodded once, a silent pact forming between them. The fight wasn't just hers anymore. It never had been. And now, it was time to bring justice to a town that had never truly known it. The truck stop was still quiet when Maya and Damien walked out, the sun high and unforgiving. Maya kept her hands in her jacket pockets, her mind already running through the implications of what she had just agreed to. Damien leaned against his black Chevy pickup, watching her. You hesitating? Maya shook her head. Just thinking. I do that a lot too, he said. But there's a time for thinking and a time for action. He crossed his arms. And in a town like this, action is the only language these bastards understand. She believed him. She had seen it the moment she stepped foot in this place. The way people like Sheriff Briggs and his men held power through fear, how the town tiptoed around them, and how silence had become a survival strategy. Maya's silence was over. Where do we start? She asked. Damien's lips curved slightly. I figured you'd ask that. He opened the passenger door of his truck. Get in. Maya hesitated for half a second before climbing in. The truck smelled of leather and faint cigarette smoke, but it was clean, orderly, just like the man who drove it. As Damien pulled onto the road, he said, First, I need to show you something. They drove for 15 minutes, past the town's main strip, past the old church and run-down gas stations. Eventually, they turned onto a dirt road leading to an abandoned farmhouse. Maya glanced at Damien. What is this? Instead of answering, He stepped out and motioned for her to follow. Inside, the farmhouse was stripped bare. No furniture, no lights, just dust and echoes. But there was something else. Pinned to one of the walls were photos, names, articles clipped from old newspapers. Maya stepped closer, her stomach tightening as she read the headlines. Local black man found dead in creek, no suspects. Young Latina mother disappears. Police rule a runaway. Unexplained fires leave 3 families homeless. Investigation closed. Dozens of cases, all unresolved, all linked by one thing, Sheriff Briggs' town. Maya clenched her jaw. This is his work? His deputies, his friends. Damien's voice was low, controlled. Some were racially motivated. Some were just about power. But every single one of these people thought they could fight back. Maya traced a finger over a faded image of a teenage boy with bright eyes. Beneath his photo, someone had scribbled his name, Jalen Carter. What happened to him? She asked. Damien's eyes darkened. He was my little brother. The words hit like a hammer. Maya turned to him. Briggs. Damien nodded, said it was an accident, a misunderstanding. But I know the truth. He clenched his fists. And now, so do you? Maya let the weight of that settle in. This wasn't just a fight against bullies. This was a war for something bigger, justice, vengeance, truth. She exhaled slowly, then looked Damien in the eye. What's the next move? Damien smirked. Now we make them afraid. The night was thick with silence as Maya and Damien sat in his truck on the outskirts of town. The glow from the streetlights barely reached the dusty road leading to the sheriff's office. The plan wasn't complicated. Send a message. A message that fear didn't belong to them anymore. Damien adjusted his black gloves. There's a bar 2 blocks from here. The deputies drink there every night, thinking they're untouchable. Maya smirked. Let's touch them, then. They got out of the truck, moving like shadows through the dimly lit back streets. The bar Sullivan's was run down, its neon sign flickering weakly. A couple of motorcycles were lined up outside, along with 2 squad cars. 3 deputies inside, Damien murmured. Maybe 4. Maya cracked her knuckles. We want them scared, not dead. I know, Damien said, but I won't complain if someone gets a little broken. Maya pulled her hood up and entered first, Damien a few steps behind. Inside, the smell of cheap beer and fried food clung to the air. Country music played from an old jukebox in the corner. 4 men in uniform sat at a table, laughing loudly, their holsters still clipped shut. Maya and Damien moved toward them. The laughter faded as one of the deputies, a thick-necked man with a handlebar mustache, noticed him. The hell do we have here? He muttered. Maya didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed a nearby chair and dragged it to their table, the screeching sound cutting through the room. She sat down, crossing her arms. Damien stood behind her, silent. One of the younger deputies sneered. You lost, lady. Maya tilted her head. Not at all. The mustached deputy leaned forward, his expression hard. You don't belong here. Maya smiled, slow and deliberate. Funny, that's what your boys said before they hit the ground. Silence. Damien let out a low chuckle. That's right. We're here about that. The mustached deputy's jaw tightened. You got a death wish? Maya leaned in, her voice low and firm. No, but I think you do. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket and slid it across the table. The deputy unfolded it, his face draining of color. It was a list of names. People Briggs had hurt, buried, erased. Damien spoke next, his voice calm but edged with steel. Your sheriff has had a good run, but that run is over. You tell him. He's not the hunter anymore. The youngest deputy reached for his gun. Maya moved before he could blink, grabbing his wrist and slamming it against the table so hard he yelped in pain. His weapon clattered to the floor. She smiled. Wrong move. The bar was deathly quiet. Every patron had turned to watch. Maya stood up slowly, adjusting her jacket. Tell Briggs we're coming. And this time, we're not asking nicely. Damien clapped the mustached deputy on the shoulder as they walked away. Better get used to being afraid. No one followed them. By the time they reached the truck, Maya could feel the shift in the air. It had begun. The bullies weren't laughing anymore. And that was only the first step. The town didn't know it yet, but war had been declared. Maya and Damien weren't just sending messages anymore. They were hunting. Their first target was Deputy Ron Callahan, the mustache brute from the bar. He had been part of the group that tormented Maya. But his sins stretched further. Damien had proof he had handled missing persons cases for Briggs. The hunt started at his house, a small, lonely place on the outskirts of town. Callahan lived alone, no wife, no kids, just a dog chained to the front porch. Maya and Damien waited in the darkness, watching. Callahan arrived just past midnight, parking his squad car in the driveway. He stepped out, adjusting his belt, humming to himself. Then Maya stepped out of the shadows. "Hey, Callahan." He barely had time to react before she was on him, slamming him against his car. His gun hand moved, but Damien was already behind him, pressing a knife against his throat. Callahan's breath hitched. "W, what the hell do you want?" Maya leaned in, her voice like ice. "The truth." They dragged him inside, tied him to a chair in his own kitchen. The overhead light buzzed as Maya crouched before him. "We know you covered up murders," Damien said, arms crossed. "We know you helped Briggs bury evidence." Callahan spat on the floor. "Go to hell." Maya grabbed his fingers and bent one backward until it snapped. He screamed. Maya tilted her head. Wrong answer. Damien placed a folder on the table. "Let's try again." He flipped it open, revealing photos of Callahan standing over the bodies of two young black men, both accidentally drowned, according to official reports. Callahan paled. Damien tapped the picture. "I wonder what happens when the feds see this." Callahan swallowed hard, sweat dripping from his brow. "You don't understand," he muttered. "Briggs, he's protected. The mayor, the judge, they're all in on it. It's bigger than you think." Maya smirked. "Good. That means more people to take down." They left Callahan shaking and bleeding. His own sins turned against him. The first pawn had fallen. Now they were coming for the kings. Next, they went after the ones who raised the monsters, the bullies' parents. They weren't innocent. They had taught their sons to hate, to torment, to destroy. They started with Bobby Whitaker's father, James Whitaker, a rich landowner who funded Briggs' campaigns. James was untouchable, or so he thought. Maya and Damien found him in his office at the Whitaker Ranch. No guards, just a man who had never been afraid of consequences. Maya placed a stack of photos on his desk. James barely glanced at them. "What is this nonsense?" Damien leaned forward. "Pictures of your son beating a Mexican boy half to death last summer. And this." He pulled out another. "Your donation records to Briggs Community Fund. A front for paying off investigations." James' face darkened. "You think you can blackmail me?" Maya smiled. "No, we're here to tell you your time is up." Damien pulled out his phone and pressed play. A recording. Callahan's broken, desperate voice filled the room. Briggs covered up everything. Whitaker paid him to. The judge isn't on it too. They kill people, man, and they get away with it. James went pale. Maya leaned in. "We're going to release this to the media, to the feds, to everyone." "You wouldn't dare," James whispered. Damien grinned. "Try us." They left him shaking, his empire crumbling beneath him. Another pillar of power had fallen, but the real monster was still out there. Sheriff Briggs. Maya and Damien knew he wouldn't run. Men like him didn't believe in losing. So they planned a different kind of hunt. They made sure Briggs knew they were coming. They plastered the town with Callahan's confession. They sent anonymous emails to the news. They lit a fire under every secret he had buried. And then they waited, because when an animal is cornered, it has only one move left. It fights. And Maya was ready. Briggs had spent years running the town, like his own personal kingdom. He'd buried evidence, silenced witnesses, and made sure no one dared to question his authority. But now, the walls were closing in. His men were turning on him. His secrets were unraveling. His power was slipping through his fingers. And Maya and Damien were about to finish the job. They tracked him to his cabin deep in the woods, his personal hideout, where he ran operations away from prying eyes. The place was isolated, surrounded by thick trees and silence. But silence could be broken. Maya and Damien moved in, guns drawn, using the cover of night. They had already cut the power. Briggs was inside, pacing, his shotgun resting on the table. The moment he heard a noise, he grabbed it. "Who's there?" his voice boomed. Maya stepped into the doorway, her silhouette outlined by the moonlight. "Your pass." Briggs spun, raising his shotgun, but Damien was faster. One shot, clean, precise, blew the weapon from Briggs' hands. He howled in rage, clutching his wrist. "You think you're heroes?" Briggs spat, his face red with fury. "You think the world gives a damn about justice?" Maya walked up to him, standing inches away. "I don't need the world to care. I just need the truth to be louder than your lies." She pulled out her phone and hit live. A camera feed lit up. They had hacked into the town's news network, broadcasting directly to thousands of screens, phones, TVs, computers. The town was watching. "Meet Sheriff Briggs," Damien said into the camera, turning it to the trembling man, the leader of a corrupt empire, a man who covered up racist murders, buried evidence, and ran this town with fear. Maya held up documents, videos, and confessions from his own men. "The proof is here, and it's time the world saw it." Briggs' face twisted in horror. "You—" Maya cut him off. "This is the end, Briggs. No more cover-ups. No more bodies." They left him there, exposed, powerless, drowning in his own sins. Within hours, the town exploded. The news spread like wildfire. The FBI moved in. Deputies fled. The mayor resigned. The people of the town finally saw the truth. Justice had come. Maya and Damien stood at the town's edge, watching the lights of police cars flood the streets. "We did it," Damien said. Maya nodded. "No, we started it." Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories about justice, revenge, and standing up to corruption.